Hi everyone, never join Lobby 3, and today we have the return of Let's Argue, 2026 edition, Renegades edition, where I am taking your Destiny hot takes, your opinions, your questions, your concerns, and we're kind of starting fresh for the year. This is like we're checking the pulse. We're checking the pulse of the community. We're checking the pulse of the game. I know that I know where we are right now with the game and all of that. But this is designed to be a little more focused on okay, how are we feeling on a more specific level? So quite a lot of responses, well over 800 responses, but quite a lot of repeats as well. So, I tried to grab as many questions as I could that a lot of people wanted to address. So I tried to get some of the most common ones for us to answer and talk about in today's video. So let's get started. Bungie's instance on ability usage, uptime, insistence, and subclasses is one of the biggest reasons the game is dying right now. Weapons haven't felt overly important for years, except the random damage phase, grapple melees especially just need to be nuked. I maybe I'm part of the problem, bro. I actually don't mind some of these more ability focused setups because I do like using abilities, but it's very clear that it does have a very big impact on how much we actually end up caring about weapons, because the weapons just tend to be accessories to a lot of these builds, right? One of my favorite builds is Arc Bolt Hunter right now with Lucky Raspberry, and a lot of my weapons are just kind of used as an accessory to apply other subclass effects so that my subclass can end up doing more things and the build can end up doing more things. But I still find it from a gameplay perspective kind of fun, but it does reduce the main, chase of the game, which is weapons, down to just, doesn't have a subclass perk that I need on it. No, okay, I'm probably going to get rid of it. There's a lot of loot related talk that we're going to have in today's video as well that I want to get to, but I actually didn't realize that this many, this is not the only there were a few dozen people saying ability uptime is too crazy and it reduces the fun of the gunplay and all that kind of stuff. But I still think there's absolutely some fun to have with it there. I just didn't realize that many people are bro, we gotta slow this down. I think the struggle there is that Destiny is a game where if you follow it very intently and you know how to build and you know how to maximize your kit, the game is really not that hard. But for the people who don't do that, the game is so hard. There's almost no middle ground of balance where it's the game, but the game's still kind of tough. So I do wonder if Bungie has also just been making things feel really overpowered just to make the more casual side of the player base a little bit happier, just to retain as many people, right? I've been saying a bunch recently that Bungie is in make people happy mode. And right now, feeling overpowered does makes a lot of people pretty happy. I am wondering if they're kind of letting people just let loose with a lot of this build crafting stuff just to make sure that people are having a good time or as good of a time as they could be and not maybe struggling too much. The next question comes from me. Why haven't you tried Cook Unity yet? This video is sponsored by Cook Unity. Cook Unity is a chef-to-consumer platform boasting dozens, nay hundreds of meals to choose from with many different dietary options. You need protein, they got you. You need vegan, they got you. You need a bank loan, they got you. What's that? Okay, I am being told that they don't got you on the bank loan. But yeah, the food stuff, that's fine. It's a new year, which means time for New Year's resolutions. And mine is to actually eat breakfast. And I love when they have breakfast options to pick from, like my new favorite, bacon, egg, and cheese wrap by Chef Ivy Stark. Another one I'll scoop is the classic breakfast burrito by Chef Dustin Taylor. And for non-breakfast food, I'm checking out the balsamic glazed flank steak by Chef Ruben Garcia, all right here in Seattle. So if your New Year's resolution involves toning down how much fast food you're getting delivered instead of, real food, head on over to cookunity.com/Datto50 and use code Datto50 to save 50% on your first Cook Unity order. That's cookunity.com/Datto50, code Datto50 to save on your first Cook Unity order. Thank you very much to Cook Unity for sponsoring this video and for sponsoring me for the past year. It's very appreciated. I'll eat the whole thing on camera.
Do you need me for this?
This will be the whole ad. It'll just be me eating it. They totally fumbled factions narratively, especially considering the story finally went into the inner politics of the city the past couple of years. Just hand-waved it all years in advance. In fact, there's a lot of D1 stuff that would be cool to explore next in these new mysteries. So I think part of the reason that like factions never really took off is because I believe they were originally intended for a completely different version of the game that didn't ever come to fruition, right? There's this thing, if you're not like super into, like the development process of the game, called the Super Cut, which was like a very early D1 release of like, I think it was like a bunch of the different cutscenes or the story and all this kind of stuff. And it didn't exactly go over well from what I have heard. Which meant that Bungie needed to like completely reformulate the game a year before the game launched in 2014. And I believe that factions were a much bigger deal in that original vision for the game. But because they had to hard pivot to a completely different vision for the game, that stuff kind of got pushed to the side and therefore never really got to hit any kind of potential whatsoever. And I think there were enough issues with other parts of the game that they were just like, this is just not part of the vision for the game anymore. And they got slowly pushed away. And then we had a little bit of attention in early D2. And then they finally were just kind of like, yeah, we're just getting rid of the factions. Like we're not doing anything with them. So it's not that like their like potential was wasted. It's just, I think they were developed with a different vision of the game in mind. And then they had to go away from that vision and go somewhere else. I agree with you that it would have been cool to have some of that like that political nature in the game or something like that, but it's not so. I don't think it's as much like they just didn't execute it properly. It's like no, they tried to do something with them very early on and it just didn't happen and they never got back around to it. That's what I think happened anyway. How do you feel that the release of Renegades could impact future potential collaboration expansions and the standard or new weapon archetype released? I believe, I'm going to keep this one short. I believe there was an article that came out with some of the higher ups, working on the expansions, all that kind of stuff, that basically said like, this is really the only time we plan on doing something this extensive where it's like that big of a collaboration. We want this campaign to be reflective of like this franchise, that franchise. I don't believe they plan on doing this again, at least as of that article. So as for your question, like, I don't think it will do that much because this was the only one that they say that they had planned, right? You're still probably going to see some Eververse collaborations here and there. Like, I don't think that's going away at all. And for the most part, I do think that they've done mostly well, implementing other games and collabs into armor and Eververse stuff, although like, some of it's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, I believe they said like, yeah, this is kind of like a one and done thing. Another thing too, which is like sort of tangentially related, is that, a lot of people have been asking like, oh, why are they not like working on like subclass abilities and, where are new fragments, where are new supers, where are the new aspects, all that kind of stuff. Bungie said that they were working on these destination abilities in replacement for the subclass stuff, just as a way to experiment to see like, is there something here with these destination abilities, the renegade abilities, the Edge of Fate stuff. And I believe another article said with this upcoming expansion in the summer, they're going to start to get back to the subclass, adjustments and new aspects and hopefully new supers and this and that. So yeah, I think that answer's a little more like concrete, like, we tried some stuff over here and all right, now we're going to go back to this stuff. And yeah, probably not doing too many more collab related things. The game undoubtedly isn't in a great state right now and has issues, but I think a lot of the community can't accept that they're likely burnt out from playing the game for almost over a decade. Some people have developed an unhealthy attachment to the game and it's making them bitter. I don't disagree. I mean, I'm burnt out, right? I have been, when I turn on my stream a few times a week, we'll mess around for like 2-3 hours on Destiny, and then I'll move to something else because I don't really have that many aspirations remaining on the game. But I absolutely do think it's been burnout. A video that I plan on making pretty soon, though, is I've been getting a lot of people coming to stream being like, hey, I haven't played since Final Shape. What's going on? Is it worth coming back? What should I be buying? So I do plan on doing a dedicated video on that particular question for people who are like looking to make a return. But I do absolutely think there's a good amount of burnout. You know, I've been trying to micromanage my burnout a lot over the past couple of years. I've been getting more interested in a few other games recently and other forms of entertainment and videos and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's very obvious that like a lot of people need to take some breaks. But we've been saying this for, 2-3 years now that people just need to kind of take a breather. And I think Final Shape for a lot of people was that breather. And now it's been, a year and a half? So now some people are like, okay, it's been long enough. I took my break. Should I revisit the game? So we'll have a video on that particular topic sometime pretty soon. Tier 5 armor and weapons are way too easy to get. Why am I getting like 5 to 6 Tier 5 pieces of gear per run of Lawless Frontier? It's not even like it's a hard activity, especially with the Renegade abilities. I'm not saying Tier 5 should drop one at a time after grinding for 20 hours, but come on. This was actually going to be my take. Like, my hot take, probably for the video, or like just like the current version of the game right now, there's too many. We're getting too many items. Bro, the Dawning was dropping like a dozen items on you, all Tier 5 after like one run of Lawless Frontier. This sentiment came up quite a lot. Making Tier 5 loot rain from the sky after Edge of Fate may have helped get us to Renegades and may have kept people grinding temporarily, but doing that permanently devalued the aspirational loot chase that the tier system was built to create. 100% agree with that. This also links into some raid-related commentary as well. I feel like the raiding seed is dead as dirt, and there's once again no reason to run old raids. As an individual who only plays the game for the raiding experience, it's brought my ability to maintain motivation to raid all-time low. Yeah, unfortunately, the way that Bungie was trying to balance the portal at the start was just, it swung way too hard in not a good direction, where it's just like, it was too hard to level, but like once you hit a certain level, you would just be getting Tier 5 gear nonstop. Like I have so many screenshots of my friends saying, you are next, playing like a round of PvP, getting like 5 Tier 5 drops in Edge of Fate when I was still grinding my way up, because I just wasn't in that much of a hurry to grind. It should have been like, leveling should have been easy, gearing up should have been more difficult, like the tiers. But with Bungie being in we have to please everybody mode, they swung a little too hard in the other direction, where now is it not only easy to level, which is fine, but it's also incredibly easy to gear up. So now Tier 5 has basically become the new norm, and everything underneath it is completely garbage. And that aspirational chase, with it being linked to your level as opposed to the like true difficulty of a piece of content, now everyone is just dripped out in Tier 5 gear, Tier 5 weapons, and we're kind of in a similar situation where we were pre-Edge of Fate, where it's like, okay, well, I have all my armor sets, so I don't really have a reason to go grind armor, except for the set bonuses, which, yes, on rare occasion, there have been some set bonuses that have been proven to be pretty good or better than others, but they are not so impactful that I think you need to drop what you're doing and go get like a 4-piece set bonus of this particular gear. And then even if you did need to do that, the gear is dropping so frequently that you can probably put together some kind of a set after like a handful of runs. I thought GM Vanguard Alerts, aka GM Nightfalls, are a good difficulty to where, like, that's where I thought Tier 5 gear would be dropping from, right? Like, they're definitely harder than Ultimate. They feel pretty good difficulty-wise. Like, I was very happy with how they have been executed so far. Yeah, I've been running them every single week. And I do think that the difficulty there is good for what I would expect Tier 5s to be dropping. But yeah, like, Lawless Frontiers, you're dunking the thing, you're spitting a bunch of loot out at you, then you're getting your completion rewards, and then during the Dawning, you're getting, like, 4 to 5 more drops. You're getting like 10 drops from Lawless Frontiers during the Dawning, where people are already like, struggling to keep their inventories organized and their vaults somewhat clean. And it is a bonanza of loot. And some people are going to be watching me being like, shut the hell up. What do you mean this is bad? I'm just giving it from my POV. I'm replying to the comments, right? So now I am very interested to see what that loot chase is going to look like in the upcoming expansion, right? Because like they're probably not going to make it tier 6, and I don't know if like I don't know what's going to happen with like the level reset or anything like that. So yeah, it's an interesting problem because again, you want to make certain people happy, and making them happy usually just involves throwing a bunch of really good items at them, right? But in turn, that makes it so the shorter the loot chase, the less reason you have to be on the game because you want to be chasing those items. And then as we discussed earlier, even when you do get those items, your build crafting tends to do a lot of the heavy lifting for the gameplay portion, which means your guns aren't as valuable. And you can kind of just like pick whatever armor as long as it has good stats, like you're good to go, right? So yeah, I do think they swung a little too hard in the other direction. But it's not like they can, like, you can't put that cat back in the bag. You just can't. You cannot put it back in the bag and, like, be like, hey, we're making it harder to, like, do a thing now. Because you're just going to make people mad at a time where you need to make as many people as happy as possible. And that's just really freaking hard right now. What do you think Bungie could do to make primary ammo weapons worth using again? They hit about as hard as a wet noodle in higher delta content, and with special ammo being generated in no short supply, I feel they are no longer worth running outside certain exotic primaries. I am in agreement. I think once you start to hit ultimate content, I think is like as hard as you can go, where primaries still feel like pretty okay, like legendary primaries. Exotic primaries, I still think feel mostly good in ultimate content. But yeah, once you're starting to hit those, like the second half of like a Lawless Frontiers, or you're hitting the GM Vanguard, they are like plink plonk city, like they're basically doing nothing. I think part of that is like, not only is there some sort of like a damage scaling issue, they rain they rain power ammo and special ammo on you non-stop. Like, why would I ever switch to my Midnight Coup when you are dropping so many bricks of power ammo that I can permanently use a machine gun? Why would I bother? Now, you could argue, like, using power weapons and using special weapons is fun, which goes back to the conversations that we've been having. So, like, using those things are fun, but it does make the entire archetype of, like, a primary weapon feel pretty bad, right? Like, go shoot some stuff with, like, a hand cannon in Lawless Frontiers in the second half of the activity, and it doesn't feel great. But it's like, bro, I can throw down a renegade ability freaking drop pod, and it's an explosion of ammo bricks. Like, you'll never run out. You have, like the super regenerating thing, revitalize, and you can get your super back instantaneously, and healing and ability energy and all this kind of stuff. So they're giving you so many tools to use other things other than primary weapons. So they just haven't incentivized their use very well, on top of any sort of balance issues, right? And I do think that also goes for like GM Vanguard. Yeah, what was it? Sunless Cell recently. You don't have to take care of your ammo. Like, that's also part of it, is like, I don't need to worry about micromanaging any of my ammo when I know I can just get it regenerated because I know what I'm doing on the game. Or the game just gives you a giant box of, like, the game gives you full ammo before you go into the boss room. Like, you don't need to micromanage your ammo whatsoever. So why am I going to care about using a primary weapon when I know there's a crate of 500 machine gun bullets waiting for me after this room, right? Like, it just, you're not incentivized very well at all. So I do think that's part of it. But yeah, I think there needs to be another looking at of where do primary weapons fit into the game right now, because there's some good ones that, like, I really like High Tyrant. I've been using that a lot. But yeah, like, as soon as we hit like that second wave of Lawless Frontiers, like machine gun, and it's just ammo everywhere. Like, I don't need to care. Somewhat related to all this, it is time for some critical nerfs to overall player power. We cannot keep climbing up an infinite staircase of power creep. I'm so tired of enemy behavior having to frequently resort to one-hit kills, maxing out their weapons' fire rate, or be nuisance health sponges. Heal clip was a mistake. I was a little late to the heal clip party. I had like a YouTube short that did pretty well that was making fun of heal clip, but it is very good. It is indeed very good. I do think this is a pretty hot take for people who are maybe not as in tune with the game. Again, if you're in tune with the game, if you know what you're doing, you have been overpowered for like the past 5 years, something like that. So I don't necessarily disagree that like we are cooking right now. I guess I'm again just surprised at how many people want to go back to like a more gun focused game compared to like some of the admittedly a little overboard ability insanity kind of vibes that we have right now. Because you look at something like D1, there's a lot of like, the vibes and we're better in D1, and I'm like, yeah, you'll never play D1 for the first time ever again. I get it, but D1 was very, very weapon focused, right? A little bit of ability stuff in there that you could do, but obviously nothing to the extent that we can do right now. And there's pluses and minuses to that, right? Like abilities can be fun, but yeah, I was not expecting how many people really want to kind of go back to more of like a, bro, let's go back to like using our guns, man. Like can we chill on some of this? So yeah, I am very interested to see how Bungie ends up responding to some of that feedback. If they do at all, again, they gotta be in. They're trying to make as many people happy as possible, and being overpowered makes people happy. So yeah, I guess I'm just surprised at the sentiment. Mid-tier difficulty raids are the best raids. Obviously, you want a hard one occasionally, but mid-tier difficulty like Deepstone, Vow, and Kingsfall are best because everyone can enjoy them without being stressed and is approachable for newer players and blueberries. It's not a hot take at all, right? Like games are good when there's enough resistance that you feel like you gotta try, but not so much resistance that like you gotta sweat it out, right? Like think of like a typical. Like, I'm thinking, I've been playing a lot of Deadlock, and I'm like, what are some of the better games of Deadlock that I have? It's when the game's close, right? Like, you're winning by like 5%. Like, you have a slight advantage, but you still gotta work for it a little bit. Those are the best wins versus like a complete stomp where it's like, okay, well, this was over 10 minutes in, right? And again, as much flack as we've given, the raid Root of Nightmares, it is ultimately something that got a lot of people into the raiding scene for better or worse. And, there's times and places for certain tiers of raids, right? Like Deepstone is a very chill raid to go run with the buzz. You just want to have a good time. You got a bunch of people around. Let's go run a Deepstone. Vow, I would say, is probably towards the higher end, probably like the upper end of mid-tier difficulty. Same with like Kingsfall. But I don't disagree with that at all. There's a time and a place for something like running a Desert Perpetual, Epic Desert Perpetual, running a Salvation's Edge. It's just part of it is like, what kind of player are you? Not that I think Bungie should always be aiming to make like mid-tier raids, because I think the feat system is good. Although I think I have another thing that talks about raiding that we'll get to in a sec. But yeah, not terribly hot of a take. Strand is one of the best subclasses in the game for all classes. People don't utilize it well. I don't think this is that hot of a take. It might be a hot take if you're just like not super tuned into the game. I mean, Titans have the Banner of War aspect, which has been insanely strong since it released into the game, allowing for some of the most like ridiculous damage setups we've ever had. Hunter also has had some pretty high levels of success with grapple melees and all that kind of stuff. Warlock doesn't do the grapple melee stuff as much as I feel like Titan and Hunter do, but now that Winter's Guile got some level of a readjustment, I'm sure that's been making its way in there as well. But even there, like, again, one of my favorite builds of Renegade so far is that support Strand Warlock setup where they can basically do everything. They're like, you could do damage, you can do threadlings, you can do support, you can do freaking healing, you can do suspending. Like, it is everything. You can do everything. So this, I don't think that should be news to anyone, but like, if you're one of the people who hasn't been using Strand, or like maybe you just don't own Lightfall, like, dude, when it's like $3 on Steam, it's on sale or something, $3 for Strand that's a deal. That's a deal, brother. Like, you gotta go scoop that up. I know you gotta go run the campaign and like do a bunch of stuff, but Strand is that good. I want to revisit this raiding scene is dead in the dirt comment that we talked about earlier as well. One of the videos that I did want to start working on was like, how are people actually doing Desert Perpetual? Because I did a couple of those a couple of years ago, and people seem to really like them. But my main concern was like, I would put out that video and people would be like, who cares? Literally, who cares about this at all? Nobody is raiding. Why is nobody raiding? I think it's because, number one, Desert Perpetual is a harder than average raid for sure, especially the epic version. And you do need to increase the difficulty in order to get better quality loot, like tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 gear. The problem is that, like, even though someone like myself, I think like 3 feet raiding is essentially like the new normal. Once you start to push that difficulty up, the time invested does not necessarily translate to the reward that you gain from it, right? Like we talked about set bonuses, and while the set bonuses on the gear in the raid are pretty good, they are not so good that people need to torture themselves trying to do these like 4, 5, 6 hour runs in Desert Perpetual to get tier 5 raid loot, when there is somewhat equal loot in every other part of the game, and it's way easier, right? Like you get way more loot from something like Lawless Frontiers for how much time? 20 minutes on like kind of like an average run. 20 minutes, you're getting 4 to 6 pieces of gear. Meanwhile, in the raid, you're getting like 1 or 2 per boss fight, and those boss fights are not quick. So if you're not with a good team, then it's going to take a while. It's just the time investment, right? But we don't live in a game where the raid loot is the strongest loot in the game anymore, right? I'm not sure we ever really were there. Maybe in certain situations we were. But like raid loot is not so desirable that people need to be hopping into the raid. And then before Desert Perpetual, you had like crafted weapons. So as soon as you're done getting all your crafted weapons, you're like, peace, I'm out of here. I have all my crafted. I have no reason to raid anymore. I got my title. I am done. And then yeah, older raids don't really have much reason to be run because they don't have updated loot. And honestly, even if they did have updated loot and they did have updated armor set bonuses, the set bonuses would need to be so good that you would want to run those raids for the set bonuses, right? I'm not sure what Bungie can necessarily do about that, because then if you do make raid loot some of the best loot in the game, then people are going to complain that they can't run the raid and they can't get the best loot in the game and this and that, even though it probably isn't going to matter that much in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, like I haven't raided in a long time. I would be raiding with the buds like just for the love of the game, right? But even trying to get people into the raid now, it's like people just don't want to raid because there's no incentive to raid at all. PvP in general should feel like a big part of the game, just like PvE, not just some side quest vibes. Trials of Osiris should have all the old weapons back in the pool as well, along with 3 rotating maps per weekend, or at least the option to veto like Halo had. Would love for PvP to get more love in general going forward. What year was this comment from? Vote now. Because it could have been from any of the past 6 years. What if I said this comment was from 2021? You'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. I could say this comment was from yesterday. You'd be like, yep, that makes sense. As more of like a PvE Andy, I have moved the overwhelming majority, if not 100% of my PvPing desires over to other games. I have 400 hours on Deadlock. That is my PvP game right now, is Deadlock, because I don't care to like play that much Destiny PvP. And I was a guy who was playing, I would say, almost majority PvP at one point in my career. It was a short window. I loved Destiny 1 Rift. I was in the Rift, brother. I was playing so much D1 Rift back then. And even some early Destiny 2. I was playing a bunch of PvP in early D2 because it just felt pretty good. Nowadays, I haven't really touched it. I don't have a desire to touch it. And as the population decreases, you really only have like the Giga Sweats playing. So like I'm not good enough to be playing against those guys. So that pushes me out of the pool. That pushes other people out of the pool. I'm still constantly seeing news about cheaters and this and that. So like I don't disagree that like PvP should feel like a bigger part of the game. It's kind of like a self-fulfilling prophecy where it's like it doesn't really generate as much money. It doesn't, get people as excited. A lot of people are not PvPers whatsoever. And there's a lot of, there's so many comments of like, dude, PvP is what people did when they like ran out of the PvE things to do. And now like nobody's playing PvP anymore. Like what happened there and this and that. And like dozens of these comments. I am probably the worst person to ask about like, what does PvP need for it to like feel good again? Like to get people back into playing it. Like that's a question I should be asking you guys as people who are still PvPing on Destiny. What what does it need? What does PvP need to get people to start playing it again? Because I personally have completely moved on. Completely moved on. What do you feel is the biggest thing dragging down replay value right now? What could be improved? I'm just tired. Literally, there are no worlds left to conquer for someone like myself. I got all the titles. I got all the triumphs. I've done everything in the game. I do the contest rating. I do this. I do that. I've been on the game for so long that there's nothing novel for me really anymore other than just like filling out some checklists. So for someone like myself who still does genuinely enjoy just like the pure moment to moment gameplay of the game still, I almost don't even know what I want anymore. There's something in Destiny Rising called Calamity Ops, which is like a ranked PvE point scoring experience where, you know, as you score more points and level up your character, you're placed on the leaderboards to try to get the most amount of score and this and that. We talked about it in the Destiny Rising video that I posted a couple months ago. I feel like someone like myself would enjoy some sort of competitive PvE type experience like that, like trials for PvE. But I think I'm not sure that would even really do it right now. So yeah, I don't know. For me, it's just like I've been on the game for so long. I know the ins and outs to the degree that I want to know them, and that I think for me is dragging down a lot of the replay value. On top of like I'm already kitted out. All my loot, I'm kitted. I have so much loot. I have so many options to pull from just sitting in my vault, just chilling idle until I want to make a new build. Like I don't have anything to really chase outside of the first month of gameplay, right? I got all my dungeon weapons, I got all my this weapons, the heat weapons, and they're all like good. They're not bad or anything. But I've run out of things to go do. I am a rare case though, where like I truly have everything. Other people out there, those are the people that I would want to be asking, like the people who are not hunting titles, the people who are not as crazy about hunting armor or weapons down. Like what is keeping you from playing or being motivated, something like that. I want to talk to a range of like, you've been around since D1, you just joined up maybe like a couple of years ago. Those are the people that I want to be asking, not someone like myself. I've conquered the world. What else is left? Star Wars being added into the story is going to have a long-term effect to the lore like a virus. I didn't think it would be that bad at first, but knowing several notable groups come back to the Star Wars IP and all the stuff that comes with that, I'm somewhat worried. Kind of like how we talked about very recently, this is more of a one-timer. I don't know. I'm someone on the side of the whole Star Wars thing being like, I thought it was mostly well done. It didn't feel like I was super like, oh, that's Star Wars and this is Star Wars. It still felt like pretty Destiny to me. And again, now that we know like, hey, this is kind of like a one-timer, I am personally not as concerned. Like, I don't know, things feel separate enough, or maybe I'm just able to see past it better than other people. Like some other people, it bothers them so much. It bothers them so much that so many things feel like Star Wars in the game. But like me personally, I'm like, okay, yeah, like I see the resemblance, but I'm choosing to be like, this, it does, number one, it doesn't bother me, and I can see past it. I kind of see the vision that they were going for. So I think until we get something that like still feels like a Star Wars related thing again, it's not something I'm terribly worried about. Like, let's see the next expansion. Let's see the next 2 expansions. Let's see how much of a problem it might end up being if we even end up revisiting some of this stuff. Like, are we going to see the Pikers again? Are we going to see Tharsis Reformation again? How much of that stuff is going to be coming into the future versus just like the 9? Obviously, we're going to be seeing a lot of the 9. That's what their whole shtick is about for this era of the game. But like, I'm not really willing to say like, yes, this will be a problem for the rest of the game's life when we haven't gotten to experience anything about like a post Star Wars-y Destiny like expansion, something like that. Final Shape was easily the best DLC in history, even better than Forsaken and Taken King. The Pale Heart was the most unique destination ever added. The strike was great, and the boss fight felt real and hard in solo legend difficulty. This is a take. This is what I'm talking about. This is the kind of stuff I want. Wow. Final Shape was easily the best DLC in history. I'll give you that the destination was pretty nice. I didn't mind Overthrow. I think people were missing the feeling of like seeing other people. Like I think if the Pale Heart was a public destination and you could see people around, I think people would have been more receptive to it because it was a pretty cool destination. It did feel like it lived up to some of the more maybe like traditional fantasy of Destiny, where it's like you're in a place and that's where you're doing things and that's where you're getting loot, and it feels good to be out in the world doing things to get your items, right? The story I thought started slow. It eventually got there. I think the reason people say like Taken King and Forsaken are some of the better DLCs we've gotten is because they added so many things beyond the story, or just like pushed Destiny up to that next level that it needed to get to for it to start really like succeeding in the public eye, right? Or even within the community. Final Shape did a fair amount of things well. Do I think it enabled Destiny to take that next step? I'm not as sure. Prismatic, love it or hate it, very impactful for the game. People did end up liking it at the start. Dual Destiny was great. So I do think it is like a good DLC overall in the entire history of Destiny DLCs. But I do think it is, I think a lot of people would say like that is a hot take. That Final Shape is better than Taken King and Forsaken. I absolutely do think that would be a very hot take amongst your peers. And I think also part of it is like a lot of people used Final Shape as a way to like step off of the treadmill as opposed to step on, right? Like Forsaken, so good. All the big changes, Taken King, the big changes, the big impact that it had. Those things brought people to the game. Final Shape, I don't know how many people it brought. It maybe brought back some lapsed players to be like, all right, how does this crap end? But then a lot of people use that as a way to be like, okay, I'm done. I'm done now with the Destiny stuff. So I think that's another reason why I'd be like, that's kind of a hot take. I don't know if I'd put it. Would I put it in the upper half? I'd probably put it in the upper half. Am I putting it above Taken King or Forsaken? Personally, I'm not. That will do it for Let's Argue for Q1 of 2026. I apologize if a lot of these questions were like, not the most revolutionary questions or takes, but they're the ones that came up the most in that thread. Again, I looked through every single thing, every single comment made. And I tried to just go with like some of the more common ones. In the next one of these that we do, which will probably be around like after we get done with the mid-season update, then I'm going to go into like some more niche takes and comments here and there. Also, feel free to like drop some like funny ones as well. Like it doesn't have to be Destiny for the next one. This one I just wanted like a real pulse of the full community to kind of see like how are people feeling, because I've been streaming Destiny, but it's a lot of my regulars showing up and we kind of have similar conversations. So it's rare that I've been able to really just like hit everybody, like everyone who plays the game, whether you're watching my videos, you're not watching the videos, you're watching the streams, you're not watching the streams. So this was like a good, even little update for me to be like, okay, how are we feeling right now? Besides like the general kind of blasé feeling about the game. So hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.